Resolution to move from committee of the whole closed session.
Moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Councillor Martin. Resolved that council rise from the committee of the whole closed session without report.
All in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? None. Adoption of minutes.
Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Higgins. Resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting held May 19th, 2021 be adopted.
Any comments, questions? All in favor? Carried. Deputations, Miss Ann Pritchard is going to be here somewhere in the room or live anyway, of Executive Director, Frontenac Community Future Development Corporation. Are you with us?
I
Ann?
am.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I think someone at that end has to put me on video if you want me on video. And I think they have some slides for me as well.
And is that going to be Angelique? I don't know yet. If we don't get you on video, don't take it personal.
That's okay. Do you want me just to get started, Mayor?
Well, I don't know if the slides are going to come up yet either. So do we know, Jeanette? No. The people that are running this apparently are in the room next door. So we're going to have to find out.
Okay.
Give us a second. We will.
Well, while they're figuring that out, I'd just like to thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak with you today.
We asked Ann one question. Okay. And I guess we have a question for you while we're waiting.
And did you, it's Dennis Doyle, welcome. Did you happen to call in earlier in the meeting and hear us?
I didn't hear anything. I just called in to make sure that I was connected and available right at 9:30, but I didn't hear anything at all. I was blocked out immediately.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we're ready, Ann. I don't think you're going to come up, but I think your slides are.
That's fine. Well, once again, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today. I just thought I'd just refresh people about our mandated services, talk a little bit about our strategic plan, which we did revisit back in 2020, a little bit about what we've accomplished this past year, and then about the food and beverage region. So as I mentioned, the mandated services that we offer are consistent with the federal government of Canada's sectors and priorities, and that we're mandated to provide. And the first is business counseling to support new and existing businesses. One of the things I like to think that we do really well under this business counseling is provide some good linkages to people within our network of contacts and resources. And we also provide startup financing as well to people who are looking to start, grow, or expand, or even maintain their business. We work in partnership with traditional lenders, and so in many instances, they may provide funds for capital expenditure, for example, but they're not willing to provide for inventory or working capital, so that's where we may step in. So we do quite a bit of that work. This year, obviously, it's been a lot, well, this past year, a lot different. I mean, we've had one business that bought a brand new business in tourism, cash in hand. They wanted some money to be able to do some renovations. And even though the property was free and clear, they couldn't get any bank financing to do it. So we were able to step in to do that. So that's sort of our mandated questions as we mandated. And then if someone's in another room, you're not really going to be able to change the slides, so we won't worry about that. The next was just talking about our strategic, oh, they do. Okay, great. Thank you. The next is our strategic priorities. So we revisited our strategic plan and came up with the 3 priorities, which are brand fortitude and business promotion, investing for impact, and food and beverage region. So the brand fortitude is to promote awareness and understanding and support for our services and programs that we provide to individuals, businesses, and community groups. It's really important for people to understand that, and that's why I always love to be able to come to council and just remind you that we're here in case you know of someone needing those services, because we can't help them if they don't know we're aware that not aware of what we are able to offer them. So our partnership with the county is really important, and Richard and Allison do a great job doing referrals, and we really appreciate that. The other part of that is to promote the local businesses and help facilitate linkages and networking opportunities, with an emphasis on promoting businesses that have access to our services. One of the things we did this past year was we had a partnership with Launch Lab and a program called Digital Main Street. And so they helped individuals learn how to promote their business themselves, which is part of what we want to be able to, or what we do. But they also provided us with some funding to do 8 videos, which we got the funding basically the last week of March and had a week to get it out. It was one of those last minute things, but we did 8 videos, and those videos so far have had over 12,000 views. So that's a really good opportunity to be able to help promote the businesses locally. The second of the strategic priorities is investing for impact. And as many of you know, I've always commented how little money we do have to invest. So we're always very careful with the investment. So we want to make sure that I'm getting a little message from the host there. Sorry. We always want to make sure we're investing for impact for business and the community. They've asked me to open my video up there. There we go. Okay, thank you. So we invest for opportunities that create or maintain jobs, provide solutions to local issues, and support federal priorities. So the federal government priorities right now are advanced manufacturing, clean technology, digital technology, agri-food, and food processing. So those last two align with what we're doing. So by that, with the investing for local solutions, one example was a number of years ago when Central Frontenac would have become a food desert when the grocery store was going to leave. We were able to work with them and the buyer and provide them with some financing. And then the last part of the investing for impact is to nurture and support the entrepreneurial spirit and the risks the entrepreneurs are able to take. And the last of the strategies is the food and beverage region. And I'll be going into that a little bit later, but it's to attract, grow, and retain small scale artisanal food and beverage businesses and continue the growth and momentum in this sector that supports the farms and agritourism and is in line with the County of Frontenac's economic priorities. The next slide, please.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Good morning, it's Councillor Higgins here. Later in our agenda, Richard's asking for money for the FAB region. And in reviewing, getting ready for the agenda, I noticed that the FAB, there's been no activity since 2017. Is this being refreshed, or maybe you could help explain?
That's the last half of my presentation. Can it wait till then?
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. The next is rebranding. As part of our strategy process, the board underwent a rebranding exercise with the goals of renaming the organization to be more obvious as to the business services being provided by the organization and more concise and easier to find. And after going through a number of names, they settled on something very plain, Frontenac Business Services. So we continue to be a Community Futures Development Corporation, but as of April 22nd, we officially changed the name to Frontenac Business Services, and we have changed our logo as well with that. Do I have another slide on the? Yep. So the next slide, if I could, and just very briefly, a year from last year, We welcomed a new team member, Jason Brown, as our business advisor. So he's been there since April of 2020, and he brings a wealth of experience and expertise, especially in business planning and marketing. And the clients have really enjoyed working with him. So we're very, very pleased with that. I also would like to think we've done a really good job tag teaming with Richard and Allison, where they hosted well-received regular Zoom networking sessions this past year and disseminated information on the pandemic programs, whereas we picked up the other part of it, which was the counseling, and we also delivered the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund. So for those of you who aren't familiar, it is equivalent to what the banks were offering, called the Canada Emergency Business Assistance Program. So we had 3 rounds of funding, and when I wrote my notes and sent them to Richard last week, I said a 4th was on the way, and I got the contract last week. We have the funds, and we have to get them out literally in the next week, or we lose them. And they are now referred to as CEBA-like, as opposed to RRF4. We did also provide what we called COVID loans. So we assisted some clients in need who didn't qualify for the regional relief and recovery, and we provided those at 2%. We were provided with some additional operating dollars, and we invested most of that in technical consulting. So we provided financial reviews with a CGA for our businesses. We did some advisory services for the BDC, and we also provided social media training as well, which we had some really good take up on that. I referred to the Digital Main Street earlier with the videos. We also were able to refer 18 businesses to assist in that program as well. And I mentioned about the videos a little bit earlier. The regular loan programming, many of the clients were startups that we worked with, some of whom normally would have been able to secure bank financing, and banks weren't unfortunately touching them. And then Richard suggested that I provide you with an overview of last year's financial stats. And for that, you're going to have to participate in our annual general meeting. And that's when we'll be providing the statistical data. And that's going to be held virtually at 6 p.m. on June 24th. So it's still not too late to register for that.
I did also want to comment 1 second there, and that you also are assisting South Frontenac in COVID relief funding for businesses.
Yes, I am. And that was sort of this year. So I didn't talk about it for last year, but yes, South Frontenac, thank you very much, has provided us with some grant funds to provide to businesses. And I think as of today, we've done 12. So we're trying to get that information out as well. So thank you very much for the opportunity to do that. The businesses really appreciate it, as do we. The next slide is about the FAB region. So I thought I'd start with a brief overview of the FAB region and the next steps. So about a decade ago, a colleague of mine sought regional funding to revive the artisanal cheese making business in Eastern Ontario, and he wasn't successful in getting that funding. As a result, I met with him. He was from Prince Edward County and Lennox and Addington and Hastings, and we started an initiative called Invest in Cheese. And we were pretty successful with that in terms of the information we were providing to businesses how to start a cheese making business. And then we changed it to become the food and beverage region to attract and grow small scale artisan food and beverage producers. After a year or so of being rather unfocused, we put the emphasis on growing craft breweries, and there was considerable success in the region, particularly in Prince Edward and Lennox and Addington. And about 2 years ago, or I think it's about 2.5 years ago, the other municipalities decided they no longer wanted to resource the project. And the rationale for that was they had had some success, especially in Prince Edward County, but they also had other priorities. And all of us have been doing this sort of off the side of our desk, as Ron pointed out. The website hasn't been active for a long time, but we have been doing some social media, but very limited social media there. We have been working on it, but not as a presence on social media, or you know, it's been more in-house, I'll say that. We started the initiative around 10 years ago, and at that time I was only aware of one business in the county of Frontenac, not including maple syrup and honey producers, that was producing food. The attraction of Seed to Sausage is directly a result of the food and beverage project. And Back 40 Artisan Cheese noted recently that part of his attraction to relocating his business to the county was because of the FAB initiative. To the best of my knowledge, there are now 20 food producers in the county of Frontenac that we're working with. In addition to producing year-round employment, they buy a product from local farmers and supply into regional restaurants and stores. And then they also have the benefit of attracting a lot of visitors to the area. So the very first year, the Day of the Pig happened many years ago now. It attracted, I think, 1,500. Back 40, when they had their first July 1st event out in the where they are, they had over, I think they had 1,500 people come. So there is an opportunity for that agritourism. And so what we are in the process now, that we last year was, the intent was to reinvigorate this site, but with COVID, we just didn't have the opportunity. We are now rebranding and rebuilding the site to tell the story of food producers in Frontenac, and it'll strictly be Frontenac. We'll be changing the name from Food and Beverage or FAB region. We haven't quite decided on how we're going to put Frontenac in there, but that's what's going to be happening. And we'll feature local producers and their products and tell their stories. And we'll grow the stories. We'll have videos and pictures as we have funds to do so. The board is investing $30,000 into the initiative at the moment. And we have contracted with a gentleman by the name of Andreas Duas. Andreas works and owns a company called Nourish Marketing in Toronto and specializes in food and beverage marketing. And then we just redid our website, and we'll be working with that web developer as well to redo that site. So at the moment, we're got plans to do 4 videos and stories and pictures, and then another 10 companies that we'll do stories and pictures for. And we're just shortlisting who those stories will be for. We'll have a resource section in there as well, and drawing on some expertise from Andreas and also another person we've been working with in food sustainable packaging. We've also partnered with the Kingston Frontenac Public Library last year to do a program called Meet the Maker series, and that's going to start rolling in July. And many of those makers were in the food and beverage area, so those videos will be part of this as well. So we're very excited about the future of what we're looking to do, and we anticipate being able to roll this out. It's probably going to take us 6 months with COVID because of all the stops and starts, and we'll get the short listed and start to be able to tell the stories. And I'm really excited about the opportunity and looking forward to working with the county on this initiative. So I think I've kept to my 10 minutes, but if you had any other questions. Everybody's on mute, so I'm not hearing any questions if anyone had any. Ron, did I answer your question?
Muted, somebody muted that.
Can you hear us now, Ann?
Can you hear?
I can. Thank you very much.
We'll start off with Deputy Warden Doyle.
Ann, thank you very much for all the support that you and and all the members that FCF DC give the municipalities. I have a question around the FAB region initiative. And we've had some inquiries locally about assistance to help people move to more organic kind of food production. And I wonder if you've got any programs or funding, or have you been involved in those kinds of things?
So as it would be the same programming, and we let the clients determine if they want to be organic or not. And then we don't have any grant programs at the moment, unfortunately, other than what is available through the Township of South Frontenac. But we can certainly work with them with loan funding. And then from time to time, the OMAFRA provides some grant 50-50 share funding is what they call it. And when there's funding there, we do refer them to that.
Councilor Higgins, did you get your answers?
Thank you, and you did answer my question. I have another one. I'll wait my turn.
Oh, sorry, yes, Councilor Ravel.
Thank you, and Councilor Rebel. When we spoke a couple of years ago or so, you had indicated that you felt somewhat constrained in the work that you were able to do because of the lack of loan funding that you had at that time. Has that problem been resolved to some degree?
It has, and it hasn't. You'd be surprised, actually. There was a number of businesses that actually sold their businesses during the pandemic. And as a result, they have paid off loans. So we do have some funding available for loans at the moment, but we also have a few new clients coming through. So I'm not sure how long that funding will last. We have borrowed money, as I think I've mentioned in the past, from one of the other CFDCs. So we still do owe some funds, and we do have the opportunity, if we are too shortchanged, to be able to borrow some additional funding. We had it pre-approved.
Thank you.
Councilor Higgins.
And Councillor Higgins here again. Just a quick question, I guess. There's been a lot of focus on your presentation on supporting initiatives you started years ago. With the pandemic, it's become clear that there's a lot of opportunities for business development once we get cell and broadband. During your strategic planning, did you look at attracting new investment, new businesses, new investors, that kind of thing?
No, we didn't. We work with people primarily who are here. That's our mandate. And economic development, traditionally, the attraction piece is done by the county economic development. I mean, we're certainly happy to be able to support that, but with the resources that we have, we just don't have the resources to do business attraction. I've had a lot of experience in that area, and takes a lot of time. So our focus has been on working with people who are here and growing the businesses that are here.
Thank you.
There are no other questions, so thank you very much. I just have one little quick one. Do you take as much criticism on social media for rebranding at virtually $0 as we do?
Actually, we've had quite a few people who've told us they've liked it, or they haven't said anything at all. So yeah, haven't had much.
Thank you. Anyway, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it, and look forward to continuing to work with the county and all the great work you folks are doing. Thank you.
Yeah. We have no proclamation, so we will move into committee of the whole.
Moved by Deputy Warden Doyle, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that council adjourn and meet as committee of the whole with the Deputy Warden in the chair.
All in favor? Carried. I guess we're keeping our seats. Unless you want to move.
No, that's good. Fine here. The first up is Kelly Pender. I see he's been once again very busy with many tasks, so thank you, sir.
So the Eastern Ontario Leadership Council is a collaborative between the Wardens Caucus, the Mayor's Caucus, EORN, Ontario East Economic Development Corporation, and CFTCs of Eastern Ontario. In 2019 and 20, they received about $1.4 million in funding to do regional economic development studies and initiatives. And Councillor Higgins was the co-chair and is still the co-chair until July the 22nd, when we have the annual general meeting. But it'll be an exciting initiative and the opportunity for the Leadership Council to take an even larger role in doing regional economic development for Eastern Ontario in cooperation with our partners. We've also had a number of discussions with respect to the CAO's meetings and our working groups leading up to the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus meeting on July the 16th and the AMO conference in August. I sit on the long-term care committee, and so we've been providing a number of different feedback to the wardens. That meeting will be on July the 16th, and preparing for delegations at AMO. So that was the EOWCCAO's planning meeting, and as I said, we're also meeting regularly as a task force preparing for AMO. EORN and Rogers will be providing an update for all county council members and for our member municipalities, so the 32 councillors, 32 politicians in Frontenac. It's important that if you can get there, that you'll receive important information about how Rogers intends to roll out the improved cell coverage. You'll be able to ask specific questions about your area and where things will be happening. I know they are doing work throughout Eastern Ontario, and you'll be able to get an update on that directly from Rogers. So it's an important initiative. And EORN continues to work on trying to get gig funding, so support for broadband straight to the home. So another important initiative.
But this meeting had nothing to do with gig funding on that.
No, this is strictly the cellular coverage. So it's getting 5G to Eastern Ontario. Correct. On provincial matters, a number of discussions regarding conservation of parks and conservation authorities. Our Director of Planning and Economic Development, Joe Gallivan, sits on the AMO task force looking at the changes to conservation authorities, and also a reminder about oral vaccine rabies, and your municipality should be receiving information directly if there is vaccine drops in your neighborhood.
Yes, Deputy Ward, Mr. McDonald.
Kelly, ministry is talking about these oral rabies vaccine. Has there been any discussion at the provincial level in regard to measures to fight the gypsy moth infestation?
I don't know what the province that there has, but in a recent survey of Eastern Ontario counties, a couple have I think Renfrew and Lanark have been looking at various programs, but nothing across Eastern Ontario that I've heard. Maybe somebody else has, but I haven't heard of anything broad initiatives coming out of the province with regards to gypsy moth.
Councillor Higgins.
Yes, I've spoken to Minister Yakubuski, Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry. And sorry, my mic was off. I spoke to Minister Yakubuski, Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry about this, and the province isn't planning on doing anything, either short or long term.
Thank you, Councilor. Local governments and other organizations that can apply for round 2 of the Housing Supply Challenge. Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus received funding under the first round, and Prince Edward County, Marcia Wallace, and Brenda Orchard from LNA are leading that initiative. We should have some report backs in terms of what does the housing shortage look like in rural Eastern Ontario. The way that data gets aggregated, we're lumped in with Kingston, and that isn't an accurate reflection of what's happening in Sydenham, Parham, Robertsville or Marysville. So they're trying to get that information, get an accurate read on the housing.
So they'll try to separate Kingston from the rural areas.
Correct. And also part of the challenge is to build a database so that information can be kept accurate. So it won't be just a spot in time. But that'll require them to go from the challenge part of that onto full funding. So funding announcement, the virtual community infrastructure funding announcement for Frontenac County and for our member municipalities. I think we're well over almost $1.2 million in total, including the arena in Piccadilly and work on Howe Island. So a good announcement for all of Frontenac, and we appreciate the province and the feds for their support for this project. Continue to with our social media channels and our total engagements continue to increase. It is our #1 recruitment program at the moment. We're live, and we appreciate that. If you can like and share with your friends on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, it really helps. It is how kids these days are communicating, and it's important to be on those social media channels. And a big thank you to Matt and the paramedic crew and the Fairmount crew for keeping the content coming. Paramedic Services Week, and if you didn't have a look at some of the great video work that we did supporting paramedics during Paramedic Week and reminding people about what a paramedic does and how important it is, not just to get to the hospital, to get a paramedic to your side and the work that they do. Matt and the paramedic team did a great job in bringing a little bit of humor to the situation, but also doing some education. Paramedic Chiefs of Canada, our paramedics won 2 different awards for photos that were submitted, and important promotion for Frontenac paramedics as well as Frontenac County. Fairmount Home, National Nursing Week at Fairmount Home, and Staff Appreciation Week, the week of May the 10th through the 16th. Personal Support Worker Day on May the 19th, and we appreciate the over 200 frontline workers at Fairmount Home and the over 150 paramedics that serve our community. So Fairmount Home, thank you to our volunteer staff and to our volunteer coordinator and support staff at Fairmount Home. Our annual 2021 Walk for Alzheimer's, obviously a little bit different during pandemic, but using the courtyard generated about almost $2,500. Planning Department update, continue to work through some plans of subdivision. Planning Advisory Committee met last week to the Phase 2 Willowbrook and review workload demands for the team. Central Frontenac official plan is nearing the end of their public notice period. North Frontenac Ontario Lands Tribunal, which was formerly LPAT, which was formerly OMB hearing. Frontenac Islands Development Charges bylaw staff are working on, and of course, the Communal Services Governance Committee. And I think at this point, all 4 municipalities have dealt with the issue and will be returning to the Governance Committee in the next couple of weeks to get direction in terms of what the business case study looks like. Joe and I have already commenced the process and gathered the background information required for that under the Municipal Act, and we'll be back to the Governance Committee for final direction. Planning applications continue to be strong. Central Frontenac in particular, over 25 applications in the month, which used to be a year and is now a month. So staff at Central Frontenac and North Frontenac and the islands have been a great support for the team. And pandemic has shown one thing: there's a huge demand for a rural lifestyle, and Frontenac is a good place to invest.
The secret is out.
The secret is out. Yes. A couple of new hires, HR wise, Lucille Jones is our new full-time administrative clerk for primary duties for scheduling the 260 paramedics, which is a task in and of itself. And Jacob Nagora is our new finance and payroll clerks. We welcome Lucille and Jacob. Barb and her team are busy preparing for OPSU negotiations as well as marine service negotiations, which we hope will take place over the next couple of months. Through May the 6th, we had 237 competitions for positions with the county, and similar to planning, that used to be a busy year, and now it was a busy 4 months and a little bit. So also continue to meet with our attendance management committee to review the statistics, and Lisa Moreland's work with respect to attendance management. And as you can appreciate, the pandemic has brought some special challenges to the table with regards to attendance, but we've made some great progress there as well.
Yeah, so I've got a question on that 237 competitions. I mean, 237 jobs, or is that the number of people you interviewed?
That's 237 jobs. So that's everything from, I got a new job, so you bid on my job. So some of them are just internal transfers to external transfer or external hires, such as we just went through the process for.
So we're not turning our whole staff over every year or every 5 months. It's just that internal competitions are held as well.
Internal competitions are in there, but even with an internal competition, you're going to set up 4 or 5 interviews, meet with people, review resumes.
And Councillor Higgs has a question.
I just wonder what percentage of, like the 237, what percentage is that of the population that is working for the county?
Your mic is not on.
I don't think it's working. Is it working?
Yep.
I just wondered what the percent, like 237, like what percentage is that of the total number of jobs? Like, is that a 5%, 10%?
We have about just under 500 employees. So on any given, so that's 6 months. So on any given day or week, there are people changing jobs, and there are openings as people retire or leave the organization. So through May the 6th, maybe 40% of our staff either changed jobs or there was an opening.
Does that suggest that there's people leaving?
There are people leaving, and if you remember the Eastern Ontario Wards Caucus report on long-term care, the average PSW lasts about 18 months in long-term care. So there's a large turnover at Fairmount, and there is turnover with paramedics as they receive full-time job offers or working in different municipalities or different paramedic services. So the core administrative staff, there isn't that much turnover, but certainly in long-term care and paramedics there's a fair amount.
Thank you.
So with that, back to you, Deputy Warden.
Okay, very good. Do we have any questions, Ellie, before we move on to the resolutions? Having seen no more, let's move on. We've got a few resolutions there. Jeanette?
Sorry, so on to the recommend reports.
Oh, sorry, I forget it.
Well, you can do it from this end. But
So on to the recommend reports. The first one is for a bylaw to declare land surplus for the purpose of transferring portions of the KMP Trail, and that's moved by Councillor Rebel, seconded by Councillor Higgs. Be it resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac accept the corporate services bylaw to declare land surplus for the purpose of transferring portions of the KMP Trail in exchange for private lands currently being occupied by the KMP Trail report, and further that in accordance with bylaw 17-1995, the council of the County of Frontenac passed a bylaw later in the meeting to declare lands legally described as part of lots 5 in Section 11, geographic township of Oso, Township of Central Frontenac, County of Frontenac surplus for the purpose of transferring portions of the former KMP in exchange for private lands currently being used for the KMP Trail, and further that the clerk be directed to give public notice of the council's intention in accordance with bylaw number 17-1995.
Thank you. Do we have any questions on that resolution? Having seen none, I'll call the vote. Yes, Councilor.
So I'm assuming this is just something, there was an oversight when we first did this transfer, and they're going forward that like, this is a legal item that should be addressed when we get into a situation like this again.
Yeah. I think there were 30-some properties bought in this portion. And when we got to construction, it was pretty obvious that it just needed to go around. So with permission of the owner, we did the jog and did the construction work while we had it there. But for the most part, our intention is to make sure that we're buying a piece of property where the land will go.
So if that situation shows up in North Carolina, we'll do it right away instead of correct. Okay, thank you.
Good point. Thank you. Any more before I call the vote? Having seen none, all in favor? Carried. And now we got the KNA compensation survey report. Read the resolution, please.
Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Smith, be it resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac receive the Office of the Chief Administrative Officer, Creflo and Associates 2021 Council Compensation Survey and Review Report, and further that Council approve the following recommendations contained in the Creflo and Associates report commencing December 1, 2022 as follows. Increase the warden's base salary by $6,000 per year commencing in the first year of the next term of council. Number 2, increase the councillor's base salary by $4,000 per year commencing in the first year of the next term of council. Number 3, to continue the current practice of paying a premium for the deputy warden of 20% above the councillor's salary commencing in the next term of council. Number 4, continue the current benefits, per diems, conventions, and benefits practices. And number 5, continue the practice of reviewing council compensation in the third year of each council term.
Any comments or questions? Councillor Higgins and then Councillor McDonald.
I have a whole pile, but I'll try to summarize them. First of all, I don't agree with all the recommendations, and if we're going to be doing all the recommendations, I'd like to see them split out to do each one of the 5 separately. I don't agree with number 2, with increasing the councilor's base salary by $4,000 per year. My rationale behind that is that when we're looking at this study, the comparative study, there's some counties that have a lot of administrative work and a lot of council time devoted to doing council activity because of what they're administrating. I don't think the County of Frontenac councilors have the extra work that would warrant an increase like this in my mind. The amount of work that I do preparing for the county is a lot less than I do for the township when I'm just a councilor. I can see the extra workload for warden and the deputy warden for chairing these meetings. But so I'll just leave it at that. And if council wants to go through all 5 recommendations, I'd like to see it broken out that we vote on each one separately. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things right off the top of the head for me is that we've always in Frontenac County been paid the lowest of any comparators across the province of Ontario. We've continued to undervalue our contribution to the county in regard to what we do for the county, the people of Frontenac County. I don't know about anybody else, but the amount of time you spend working on county material is not the amount of time you spend in this room. If you're being prepared for any kind of meeting, you're doing some research and calling people behind the scenes in order to be better prepared to come to these meetings. I have a problem that even after doing this, we're probably still going to be about a 50 percentile for all of the other comparators in regard to our pay. The amount of work we do, I don't have the information as to what people do in other counties that were used as comparators, but I would assume that the council or the consultant researched council or counties that were comparable to what we do. I would hope that they would do that anyway, because I do know that there are other, I wouldn't name them, other counties where the warden, for example, gets tremendous more than anything that was listed on any of these comparators. A friend of mine who happens to be a warden in another county, the base salary is $65,000 a year. So I think the question, I have no problem with this, but if we're going to attract younger people to actually come and sit at county councils, when you think of the fact that we've lost a third of our tax deduction from any salary we get, and if a young family or individual have children at home and they're expected to come to a county council meeting during the day, they're going to be faced with the cost of childcare. And that's all removed from the base salary. And so if we're going to actually get some young people to consider running as a county councilor or even our local council, we're going to have to make it a salary that's going to actually appeal to them. Because if you're taking time off from another full-time job, you're losing that salary. So you're really not gaining anything by being a county councilor. But in my final comment is that these recommendations were put forward. Why are we waiting for the next council to institute them? Why wouldn't we be doing it the first of the next full year? That's just a question I have in my mind. Because for the most part, if around this table, if we weren't all retired or self-employed, there's no way that we would be here as a counselor because it just takes too much time. So thank you, Mr. Deputy.
Thank you, Bill. Mr. Warden, you have the floor.
Yeah, I won't support this as the way it is. I could support number 3 and number 4. The comment on number 4 is we already get paid if we're going to conventions or we're working other than even as the warden and on EORN, if I'm putting time in for that, I get paid extra. So I won't support that. I don't like the continued practice of reviewing council compensation in the 3rd year of each term. I think that just said, I don't like that practice. I could never support this when I've argued as long as I've been here at 2% or even 3%. So I will not support this. I would rather have it. Council made a motion a long time ago to go with CPI plus 0.6% for reserve. They haven't followed that technically. And I won't support these kind of increases. I think that we are compensated fairly. I think that if you're going to try and neither can we do this as a township, nor can we do this as a county to pay anybody to attract a young person. If they don't want to do it or they don't have the ability to do it with their workload, you cannot compensate them enough as a municipality to say quit a job or don't have a job and work for the township. There's no way you can do that. So it's a choice. It's a choice for me, and I'm sure it's a choice for most of us. But I will not support this the way it sits. I would rather come up with a percentage, whether that's 1.5 or 2%, and it's automatic going forward. I don't like these reviews, and that's. I'm not saying that South Frontenac is right, but that's the way we set it up, so we don't have to review it. So those are my comments. I think we're compensated enough, and you cannot compensate to quit a job or not have a job to come here. And if we're going to vote on it the way it is, I'm definitely going to ask for a part vote.
Councillor Rovell, and then
Thank you, Deputy Warden. So I don't know the extent of the work that the warden puts in, but I anticipate that for all the committees they are on and the extra work they're putting in, I don't think the increase proposed for the warden's position is unreasonable. I would find it very hard to support the current recommendation for councillors, although there may be some merit in some increase for councillors, but not at the level that's being proposed at this time. Perhaps a quarter of that might be an appropriate level. So I'm quite happy to also do break out those in terms of separating those for one motion to be dealt with by council. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
I just want to add that this is the second review we've had that we didn't do anything with the first review, really. And I think the proof is in the pudding that we are the lowest paid. And it is a job that requires a lot of time. Having just been the warden in a pandemic, you spend a lot of time doing the job. If you're not spending a lot of time, you're probably not doing the job that it's meant to be done. So I do believe that our base salary for the warden's job needs to be greater. As for counselors, again, our packages are detailed. There is work to be done. $4,000, I don't know if that's the right number or not, but I do believe it should be compensated more in relationship to the warden's pay. Certainly there are committees that we work on that we do get a per diem or we get mileage or whatever. But we're a small group, and I think we probably work harder than some of the bigger areas that have more counselors around the table. So I would support some of these recommendations, maybe, as Alan says, with a bit of an adjustment here and there. But I do think we need to take a look at not being the lowest across Eastern Ontario anymore. We're worth more.
Yes, Mr. Ford.
We took the last review, we took a significant increase compared to what we normally did. I think those pays were jumped up last time. And I don't know the percentage, but I know that we did increase them.
I think you're right, we increased some, but we didn't go to what the
No, I didn't.
consultant recommended.
No.
So what I'm hearing is maybe adjust 1 and 2 downwards a bit with the rest of 0, I don't know. And then add a clause that we will take something like the inflationary rate every year. Is that what I think
That is, the
both
current policy is CPI.
is CPI. So the question is that enough?
Correct. So you don't need a motion with respect to CPI because it's already there unless you want to
I think
eliminate it.
the warden suggested 2 or 3%. For example, should we lower number 1 and 2 to say 3,000 and 2,000 for the counselors, and then say we'll take a ongoing 3% increase and dispense with the 4-year review at the 3rd year of every council? I think that's what I heard. The 2
No,
Rons
it's not what
basically.
you heard. Francis and I are both supporting the 6,000 a year for the warden. We both been wardens, and Ron has too, as well as the other mayor.
Okay, it's just a
So
counselor.
there is a lot of extra work being a warden. There's the OWC, there's all the material, right? There's the meetings, there's a lot of extra work for the warden. So I support the 6K for that. I think it's underpaid. I can be flexible on the 4,000 per year, but I don't want to go 4,000 a year on that one. And the rest of them I'm okay with, except for number 3 that I had a question on whether the deputy warden or not. There's a really, the deputy warden only fills in when the warden's not available. The only extra work that I can see is hosting or chairing the committee of the whole. Other than that, I can't see that 20% above the council, whether that's applicable or not, I'm not sure.
Okay. From a process point of view, can we break it down and vote on 1, 2, 3, 4 at a time?
So from a process point of view, I believe Councillor Higgins has asked that each one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, be voted on separately.
Right.
As well, when you vote on, for example, number 1, then there is the option for somebody to move an amendment if they want to increase that figure, lower that figure, or make it different. So there's the option, once you start to vote on number 1, that somebody can move an amendment to that to change that number if they wanted to. But that would be the process.
And to vote one at a time, do we have to pass a resolution to say that's agreeable? Or can I just call
No,
the
you don't
vote on
need
each?
to, no, you just vote on them separately.
Okay, I'll call the vote on.
I think the warden asked for a recorded vote as well.
Can I just point out one thing with respect to number 5? Sorry, can I just point out one thing with respect to number 5? That's currently done by bylaw. So if Yeah, 4 and 5 are currently in a bylaw, so if you want to change from that, so you're taking them all out. If you want to change that, then I think it would probably be by notice of motion to bring the bylaw back, rather than, you can't change a bylaw on the floor. If you know what I mean.
Okay, so we'll do 1, 2, 3 today and perhaps postpone.
Sorry, so
the
they're
next
all under the remuneration bylaw. So once these are accepted, then we would have to bring back the remuneration bylaw
Oh, to the next meeting.
to the next meeting. Yes.
Good, okay. Well, I'll call the vote on number 1 then. Increase the warden's base salary, 6,000 per year commencing first year of the next council term. And if anybody wants to propose an amendment, I heard Bill say that should be done earlier, but I think most people said they thought that was reasonable.
Well, the resolution.
Any comments before?
The resolution reads December
It
1st, 2022.
reads, increase the warden's base salary by 6,000 per year commencing in the first year of the next council term. Do we have any comments or requested changes to that? Having seen none, I
Recorded votes.
call the recorded vote.
Yes.
So Deputy Warden Doyle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Higgins?
Sorry, there was still some questions still on. the
Oh,
floor.
sorry, I didn't see your hand come up, Councillor Val.
Deputy Warden, just for clarification, that's so 6,000 per year, so each year this warden salary will increase by.
No.
No, that's just for the next term. Whoever's holding that seat gets 6,000 more.
For 4 years.
No,
For
The way I read what's there is per year. So I'm not sure, was it annually that, so is it the
No.
warden's base salary increased by 6,000 remains that for the 4-year term?
That's the way I read it.
Subject to
Like the
CPI?
first warden wouldn't get just 6,000 more. Or he would get 6,000, but the second one wouldn't get 12,000 more than
No,
today.
that's the, sorry. The report highlights that discrepancy. So the warden in the first year would get 6, the warden in the second year would get 12, and so on.
Oh, well, that's ridiculous.
Well, that's fine.
At the end of 4 years would get you to approximately the 50th percent. So when we had this discussion in 2018, it was you, Deputy Warden, made the motion to take the total and divide it, and then we split it in half, if that makes sense. So instead of 6 and 24, we added it all up, and Phil has done the calculation in the report.
Okay. I did read it that way.
No, I read it a couple of times because I was confused the way it was worded, and so I couldn't support. So that would be 24,000 extra that
Over
whoever held the 4th year.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that was your issue the last time. So if you look at option 1 and option 2 in the report, it highlights that fact and gives you some options.
Sorry, I couldn't see that there.
Right. I could read that too.
Well, rather than going through all that, what do we think's fair? Is 6, go ahead.
I'd like to suggest that we increase the base rate of 6,000 in 2022 and use CPI after that.
I agree. You want a seconder for that amendment? Al and Jerry as well. Okay, any others before we call the vote? And it's going to be a recorded vote.
Sorry, so just to get some clarification on that, so then what we're going to do is we're just going to take out the per year out of that sentence.
Yes.
So that it would be amended so that it reads, increase the warden's base salary by 6,000 commencing in the first year of the next council term.
Or we could say during the next 4-year term of council.
So we're going to remove per year, correct?
Yes. Yes. As long as we all understand that. Yes, Councilor McCallum.
Yes. Can we put that is beginning next year, not the next term?
I guess you can if you want to propose it, but I think I'd have to declare
Yeah, conflict.
conflict there because I'm scheduled to be the next ward. So, but
I don't think it's a conflict.
But, Mr. Chair, Yes, sorry. It doesn't really matter, no matter what we do around in here, at least somebody's going to be affected at some point. So I don't know whether you can have to declare a conflict because you're going to inherit a position with a change in salary. I'd like to get clarification.
And that,
Yes.
best practice is that you do it for the next council, because theoretically that can be anybody. Understand your point completely. But I mean, that's why most municipalities do it in the third year, because you're dealing with it for the next council.
Okay, I'm not being warden.
No,
Yes, Mr. Ward.
Well, I was just gonna comment to that. I would think it would be a little bit insulting to the 3 past wardens who just went through the whole process, and then in the middle of the term, somebody else gets an increase of 6,000. I think it's fair to do it for the next council, because maybe none of us are here and you're not voting for yourself technically.
And make it retroactive.
Yeah.
You heard out.
We have to have 4 people declare conflict.
Okay,
Okay.
no further questions.
No further questions, so I'll call the vote on amending it for 6,000 increase for the next term of council. We're going to have a recorded vote.
Plus cost of living.
Plus the cost of living the year after.
Yeah. The inflation rate is already in there.
So just for clarification, you're actually voting on the amendment right now and not the actual number 1. You're just voting to amend number 1, and then you will call.
Okay, we'll vote to amend number 1. Does that have to be recorded? No. You okay with not recording that one, Ron? Sure. All in favor? Passed. We've got the main amendment now is to increase the warden's base salary by 6,000 commencing in the first year of the next council term.
So Deputy Warden Doyle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Higgins,
Yes.
Councillor Higgs,
Yes.
Councillor McDonald,
Yes.
Councillor Martin,
yes.
Councillor Rebel,
Yes.
Councillor Smith,
Yes.
Warden Vandewalle.
No.
So that's carried on a vote of 7 to 1.
Or is it 7 to 2?
If there's only 1 vote for a warden, you can get the whole.
Oh, okay. Item 2, increase the councilor's base salary by 4,000 per year commencing in the first year of the next council term. So I guess first of all, that per year would have to come out. Councilor,
I'm just gonna make a motion that we amend this the same as we did the last one to, now that I understand the process, my comment about not supporting number 2, I'm gonna take off the table. I supported if it's 4,000 for the first year and CPI after.
okay. Any other questions or comments before I call the vote? And you want a recorded vote? Yeah, recorded vote, please.
Sorry, again, Deputy Warden Doyle, we're voting on the amendment and we need a seconder to that amendment.
All in favor for the.
Also
amendment?
second the motion.
Oh, second the word, okay, good. And I think you okay with having that vote on that without recording it, Ron? Yeah, all in favor? Opposed? And we passed that one, so now we got to vote on the main amendment, which is increase council's base salary by 4,000 commencing in the first year of the next council term. Any questions? See none, we'll call the recorded vote.
So Deputy Warden Doyle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Higgins,
Yes.
Councillor Higgs,
Yes.
Councillor McDonald,
Yes.
Councillor Martin,
Yes.
Councillor Rebel,
Yes.
Councillor Smith,
Yes.
Warden Vandewalle.
No.
So that is carried on a vote of 7 to 1.
And we're down to number 3. Are we okay with that as is?
4 and 5.
Councillor,
I think it's generous, but I don't know.
Based on our decision with number one, do we actually need this? So we just agreed that we're going to boost the base salary and implement CP after, so I'm not sure why we actually need this in place.
Because that's already in the bylaw, is it not?
Yeah, well, the deputy warden does have to do more standby plus
Standby
these
pay.
meetings and so on, so I
Well,
got no
that's
problem
fine.
with the 20%.
So that was my point. And number one, we already agreed on that. And number two, we agreed on it. So I'm not sure why that statement, why we need to vote on that.
I guess
Is
just
that
to
because of
confirm,
the
I guess
bylaw?
just to confirm, we're all okay with 20% as is, or given that's the way it is, to, you're right, maybe we don't have to, we're not changing it.
So if we don't vote on it and it's removed, when we bring the new bylaw forward, if there isn't really clear direction that we're actually going to.
Well, there's no
do
harm
this,
voting on.
Okay.
Okay, I'll call the vote. Are you okay, Warden, to not record this one?
Well, there's no amendments, so I might as well record them all.
Okay. Okay, we'll have a recorded vote on number 3.
Deputy Warden Doyle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Higgins,
Yes.
Councillor Higgs,
Yes.
Councillor McDonald,
Yes.
Councillor Martin,
Yes.
Councillor Rebel,
Yes.
Councillor Smith,
Yes,
Warden Vanderwall.
No,
That is carried on a vote of 7 to 1.
Yes. Councillor Higgins.
Can I just ask that you turn your mic off when we do the recorded vote? I can't turn mine on to say my vote, just for
Okay, sorry.
for recording in public.
Okay, we're down to number 4, continue the current benefits per diem, so we're not changing that, just carry on. But I guess we have to vote on it anyway. So can we have a recorded vote, please?
Deputy Warden Doyle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Higgins,
Yes.
Councillor Higgs,
Yes.
Councillor McDonald,
Yes.
Councillor Martin,
Yes.
Councillor Rebel,
Yes.
Councillor Smith,
yes,
Warden Vanderwall.
yes,
So that's carried on a vote of 8 to 0.
Thank you. Number 5. Call the recorded vote, please. Any questions before we call a vote? Yes.
I don't have a question, I have a comment. I don't like this practice. I don't like hiring a company to review council compensation in the 3rd year of every year of council term and go through this. That's my opinion. You can do with it what you want, but I don't like it.
Are you also suggesting that we increase the percentage from the inflation rate to something else, or just drop this practice completely?
If you can come up with a reasonable increase every year, I like this way better than going through this process.
Thank you. Councillor Smith?
I disagree. I think we need to have an outside focus come in and show us exactly where we're at. At some point, the people around this table are going to say, enough is enough. We're not going to be doing this job for the pittance we're being paid, when the rest of our comparators are far above us. Because we're not making the steps to go up to any degree with what we've just approved, we're going to fall further and further behind. And none of us do this job for money, but I think let's be realistic in that we are valuable in what we bring to this table, and money for value should always be considered. And I think unless you have an outside agency pointing that out to whoever sits here every 3 or 4 years, we're going to get further and further in the hole till nobody will want to do the job.
Any more comments?
Well, they don't want to rebuttal, so I'll let it go.
Okay, I guess we'll call the vote and see what turns out.
Deputy Warden Doyle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Higgins,
Yes.
Councillor Higgs,
Yes.
Councillor McDonald,
Yes.
Councillor Martin,
Yes.
Councillor Rebel,
Yes.
Councillor Smith,
Yes,
Warden Vanderwall.
No,
The vote is carried 7 to 1.
Thank you.
Can I make another motion on this topic while we're still on it? Or motion forward?
No, you can, we have not yet voted on, you can make a motion to amend it as well.
I'd like to make a motion that we review the bylaw, and instead of looking at just salary, that we start compensating council members based on working on committees. I know we had this discussion before, but I think if we do it that way, address it by people working on committees might help with the compensation. The reason I'm saying that is that it's great to increase the salary for all council members, but not all council members do the same amount of work as everybody, so it's kind of unfair that way. But if people are stepping up to work on committees and stuff, maybe that's the way we look at compensation for council members. So I'd like to make a motion that we review that bylaw, just to look at that and review that, how we compensate council members again.
That's essentially point number 4 of the recommendation, which was just approved. But having said that, the whole bylaw will come back at the next council meeting, Madam Clerk?
That's correct.
So we can bring it up there.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
bring it up there, I guess.
Okay.
Address it then, that's good. Yes,
Sorry, Deputy Warden Doyle, through you, if I could just make one other point as well. We do have another bylaw, which is the bylaw that appoints members to external boards and committees. And within the remuneration bylaw, those people appointed to those boards and committees do receive the per diem.
okay, whether it needs to be adjusted, I don't know how long since that was adjusted. I'll look at
When the
that
bylaw comes back.
in July, yeah. Okay, anything else on that? Can we move on to the planning and economic development area now? Got a resolution?
Moved by Councillor Higgins, seconded by Warden Vanderwall, be it resolved that the County of Frontenac partner with Frontenac Business Services for the purpose of growing food processing businesses in Frontenac County, and further that a one-time contribution of $5,000 from the Economic Development Operating Budget be directed toward the rebranding and redevelopment of the Food and Beverage Region Business Attraction Campaign.
Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of this. In the report, the manager makes reference to attracting investors. We gave direction to the economic development to do investor attraction. This is supporting the FAB program again. And as I mentioned earlier, we funded this before, and since 2017, I know Anne pointed out that there was some activity going on. But I searched the website and all their social media, and there basically hasn't been anything going on with this group over the last 4 years. And we provided direction to start looking at attracting investors into the area. And this is taking money out of the economic development funds that would be used to do that activity. So I know Richard isn't in the room right now. I don't know if Kelly, you can maybe expand whether this is the right thing to do or not.
I think Richard's probably available to discuss it, but I mean, it's a service level decision to be made by council. So, is it the right thing to do? Certainly, we've seen progress with Bag 40 Cheese, and as Ann said, over 25 new businesses related to the food industry in the last 7 years. So, is it worth investing more? I think it's a council decision, but
Any other comments or questions? Yeah, yes, Councillor Smith.
I think we're talking $5,000, like this is not a huge investment. And lots of people with the pandemic have been more interested in growing food and doing organic things. And I'd like to support it simply to see if we can spearhead something to get started. It's something to look forward to for folks coming out of this pandemic. And you never know when a little business is going to, come from the rocks of some of our townships to do something creative. So I would be in favor of it.
Yes, Councillor Higgins.
Is this $5,000 that's a loan, is it paid back?
No, it's just to help develop the programs.
So, 5,000 doesn't sound like much, but I also know the economic development has a very small budget. And if we provide a direction to attract investors to come to the area, what's the impact of providing 5,000 out of that budget versus being able to attract investors? That's my point. I don't know how much is left in the budget. I don't know what the impact of 5,000.
I am available to speak if so desired. It's Richard here.
Richard, can you hear us?
I sure can.
Comment on the impact on the budget and
On the economic development, we have the funds available this year. They would be funds that we would normally use for things like merchandise or developing the brand that has rolled over and we're not pursuing this year. So those funds are available this year to support the redevelopment of this project. It would be, for every dollar we're putting in, the Frontenac Business Services are putting in $6 towards this project. So and at the end of the day, this would become then a flagship marketing product that we could use for the purpose of investment attraction. So it would be something that somebody else spent $35,000 on, and we spent $5,000 on. But then when we go recruiting businesses or on missions to find or grow new businesses, we have this asset available to us. And so that's, to me, is the value of partnering with the CFDC on this, the Frontenac Business Services. I'm working on the new brand, and I promise. Okay, so yes, it's the value of partnering on this project. The other value is the previous project was a partnership between multiple regions where it was much more spread out, the focus on attraction. In this case, it would be Frontenac focused only. And so therefore it becomes a Frontenac specific project. I would be less inclined to participate in something that was spread across a much larger region. And so that's what we're looking at here.
okay, we'll call the vote then. If there's no more questions, all in favor? Carried. Okay, we're moving on. Oh, do we have a briefing now? Richard, you're giving us a briefing on economic development and the trail?
That's correct. Just let me load my presentation up here, and I'll be happy to share it with you.
We're getting we're way over time. So can you keep it brief, please?
Sure thing. Sure. Just turning on the presentation here, and okay. And I apologize. My colleague in the other room is having a bad day. If you can hear him in the background, so. Okay, and I have the ability to share host. Yes. Okay, great. Is the presentation available there for everybody?
Yes.
You've got
Okay. Great. So so I'm just providing. We provide a report in the package on the Frontenac KMP Trail on where things are in terms of operations. I just wanted to update everybody on who's been working on the trail and what we've been up to over the course of this year as we move towards next year. We have three various people who provide a lot of assistance when it comes to managing the 70 kilometers of trail. We have Gerald Cornia, who's been our project manager. He has contracted to oversee strategic projects, so our capital builds primarily. We've had Steve Keeley, a former public works manager, available to assist with some of the policy development. As I've taken some time off this year to engage in parental duties, Steve has stepped in to help fill the gap. And then we have a volunteer called Wayne Bush, and he has been helping with the oversight of the trail for many years. And his role is now official through the Verona ATV Club as a trail volunteer. So he's providing assistance to us under their umbrella. We've spoken already this year about trail development in phase 6. We have about 14 kilometers to get between Clarendon Station and Snow Road Station, and the county has already reached out to a number of landowners to begin discussions regarding the purchase and transfer of the rail corridor. Staff will provide council with updates as we have information to update you, but at the moment discussions are very preliminary. In addition to that, both Frontenac County, Lanark County, and Renfrew County have been notified by the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority, who owns about 35 total kilometers of the KMP, including 7 in Frontenac County, that they're interested in selling its portion of the KMP to municipalities. And so those discussions are ongoing, and Lanark County is leading those discussions as they have the most trail kilometers to benefit from if we can find an indication to go forward on that. We've started an annual maintenance program this year, so with increased use, we're seeing a lot more need for regular maintenance. So we've graded and compacted the trail between from Orster Road to Sharbert Lake this year, and then we invested in dust mitigation between Verona and Sharbert Lake this year as well. And later on this month, we'll have some mowing and brushback, which we've done every year. This was the first year we were able to go to tender and get competitive bids on all of these pieces, and we were able to see what the industry has available for us to keep track of this and to extend the useful life of our infrastructure. In addition to that, we with the ATV club, they'll be patrolling the trail on our behalf once a month, and they'll be using an app created by the GIS department to capture the issues along the trail, and then we can assign them for resolution. Earlier this month, there was an ICIP, which is Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program funding that was announced. For all the townships received some funding, as well as the county as a whole, and we're looking at our funding is to improve accessibility and access to the KMP Trail, and that's specifically to make sure that the trail is available for use, not just for users with assistive devices, but for all ages and stages of life, so families and seniors. So that will mean improving safety and access at our gates. As you can see in the photo here, one of the gates, this is relatively flat, but most of the time where somebody passes through a gate on the trail, the grade actually becomes quite torn out from the high use, and so that you are not on a flat surface. The gravel is softer, and so that can be a problem for people who have a challenge with placing their feet on flat or uneven surfaces, or even using wheeled mobility assistive devices. So we're looking to adjust our gates to fix that. We'll be placing benches along the trail, especially in areas where seniors are expected to go, and we'll be using an Engage Frontenac platform to crowdsource some locations. And we'll be placing safety barriers along some sections of the trail where there are steep drop-offs or water that somebody with visual impairments or in a wheeled device might roll towards unknowingly. And so we want to make sure that we keep those people on the trail as much as possible. We'll be doing this over the course of the next 4 years. It also included funding to complete the Verona trailhead, which would make it a fully accessible access to the trail. We're also looking at the report indicates that we're planning to increase parking. The increased trail use that we've seen over the course of this year and last year has really demonstrated demand for additional parking. We see a number of cars always parked at this crossing near White Lake Road on Highway 38. So that's an easy place to make an improvement because it's a former road. And so where those two vehicles are parked in this picture, It used to be Road 38, and so the base is there, and it just needs to be cleared off and improved upon. The ATV Club has indicated that they'd like to support us on that project as well with some funding. So we look forward to moving forward with that. The second picture here shows the parking at Harrowsmith. So that's on a Monday, which is our lowest day for use on the trail. And you can see the parking lot is just full. So there are lots and lots of people out there. One of the reasons is many people aren't carpooling to go on the trail. They are traveling in separate vehicles. But I think the demand that we see in our numbers is just going to increase. We manage 8 bridges between Orser Road and Clarendon Station. There's another bridge in the village of Charlotte Lake that we are not responsible for currently. But there are each of these crossings listed on the slide here. The photo here on the right is of Elbow Creek, which was replaced in 2014, or constructed actually in 2014 for the first time, and the deck on there that bridge is beginning to fail. It was a more affordable composite structure that was offered by the bridge provider at the time, and it looks like it's getting water inside it, which is then causing it to inflate and burst at the seams. We're going to do an assessment, and I likely will come back with a report either later this year or early next year about our options for what we're going to need to do. But in the near term, we're going to have to lower the load limit on there. Most trail traffic and most trail maintenance traffic will be able to travel along there, but large trucks, certainly not loaded dump trucks, would be able to travel across this bridge until we've remediated it in some way, shape, or form. And then looking ahead to our future development in North Frontenac, I'm able to, using satellite imagery, determine that we have at least 6 additional crossings that we'll be adding. So these are important because they're big places where we're exposed for liability, and that they can drive up the expense of development significantly if they're not approached carefully. We ran a survey last year. We had 463 total responses to that survey, and 53 of those respondents said that they use this trail. This is a spelling error on my part. I thought I had fixed it, but they use the trail at least weekly, and 20% use it at least 2 to 3 times per week. So that's a lot of regular use, and many of the responses came from individuals in Kingston who come up to Frontenac to use the trail. And then the use was equally split between ATV users, bicyclists, and walk hikers. One of the interesting things is that 100% of ATV users indicate that they stop at stores, restaurants, or cafes while on the trail, and that the most frequented location on the trail is Muddy Waters in Verona. All of the other users do also stop, but not in such a significant way. I was impressed when I saw that the bicyclists and the walk hikers were about 60% stopping. I was like, that's a good statistic. And then when I looked at the ATVs, I was blown away by what the reporting was on that standpoint. We've started to install trail counters. So they started to be put in November of 2020 as part of the capital project up in between Charlotte Lake and Clarendon. So we have two counters, one north and south of Charlotte Lake, one in Clarendon and one in Titchburn. We have another 6 that are being installed over the course of this year. They should all be ready to go. They're funded through the ICIP program. And they should be ready to go hopefully for July data. So we have data from the length of the trail in different sections. But I think it's important that we're just looking at the month of May here. And so each of those peaks is a Saturday in the month of May. And as May progressed, we got busier and busier. And it's hard to tell, but specifically heading north from Charlotte Lake gets the most use out of the areas. But it's still pretty consistent across each of the areas. So May 22nd was our busiest day, and we had almost 700 user counts on that day between Titchburn and Charlotte Lake. Some of those counts might be the same person as they travel through each counter, but some would not be. These counters have the ability to tell us if it's an ATV, a bicycle, or a pedestrian, but we're currently just finishing the calibration of that ability, and so we'll be able to report on that over the summer as we go forward. Then part of our vision for this trail is to make it a signature destination. And so one of the things that we've done is start to market it as part of a Eastern Ontario regional rail trail loop. So there is the KMP makes up the western portion of this loop that includes the Ottawa Valley Recreational Trail and the Cataraqui Trail, and it's an exciting adventure for cyclists. We had a cyclist go out and do a story with one of our tourism partners last year and talk about it. That was picked up by the Ontario by Bike magazine. And distributed by them. And then last weekend, a group of cyclists based in Carleton Place did this 350 kilometer loop in 2 days, which is a little bit of biking. So we're going to continue to look at this product with our partners in Lanark and in Renfrew as a way to attract cyclists to the region. Additional loops are going to be possible with the ATV groups using other trails that are more northern in our area, and we'll be looking at partnering with the ATV Club on marketing those as well. As we continue to invest in the trail, it becomes more and more of a destination that has supportive infrastructure and businesses that can support trail users, as we can talk about how many people are along the trail and moving along. So I've mentioned the Verona District ATV Club a couple times. They're a very active and engaged partner. This year they have 10 trail wardens. So these are trained patrollers to look out for issues in the trail, to stop and talk to other trail users, and basically just to act as stewards of the trail while they're out there. They're marked wearing warden vests, and so they travel the portion of the KMP that is motorized, as well as other parts of their network. This helps keep unwanted behavior down, and also helps identify areas where maintenance is required. If it's minor maintenance, the ATV Club's happy to help us out and fill in a hole with gravel themselves, or cover that. And they've also identified some strategic initiatives that they'd like to do, like such as providing garbage receptacles at trail parking areas. And
Sure.
they'd also, yes, go ahead.
At the end?
I think I've got one more slide. So, and then they're also interested in providing us with a trail rest stop areas along the trail. So those would be bathrooms that would make the trail more attractive to women and children, as well as maybe seniors who don't want to squat in the woods. So it'll be fairly exciting to see those things come up. Next month, we'll be bringing you a trail management plan. And this slide basically just outlines a paragraph that's in the report that talks about, as the trail grows longer, as trail use increases, as partnerships grow, there are more things to manage and more risks that we have to mitigate and plan for. And so the trail management plan will assist whoever is doing maintenance or management or development of the trail, whether it's myself or other members of the county, whether it's our partners in the townships or in the user groups. We'll have this document to refer to for those standards in order to understand how to respond to an issue when it arises. So that's how we'll be moving forward. Happy to take any questions if you have any.
Mr. Warden. Specifically on your report, but my understanding is no train. Have you heard? Remember we reported train coming, and my understanding is that through the grapevine that I've heard that we're not getting it. Have you heard any update?
The in terms of the KMP, we're not putting a train on the KMP trail, as far as I can tell. If you're speaking about the Via Rail proposal on the Te Havelock corridor or through the region, I have not been communicated with or seen any update with respect to that.
Yes, Mr. Warden. I'm talking about member county council and some of the municipalities supporting a caboose or a rail car coming to some of these trailheads. My understanding is we're not getting them. Have you heard?
So no, I have not heard anything about the parts of the train that the St. Lawrence Park Commission was decommissioning and had put up for bid, and we had provided a letter of support to a group of locals that were interested in bringing some of that to our region. I have not heard any updates on that whatsoever.
Upper Canada Village, I believe, up here. Okay, Councillor McDonald?
Yes, through you, Mr. Deputy Warden. Richard, a couple questions. In your consideration of additional parking area, make sure that you include in your budgeting process that there will be winter control needed on those, especially when the parking areas get much bigger. And the second point I want to make with you is that if any of the bridges that are on the KMP are have weight limit issues, then the maximum weight issue should be posted on that bridge. Now, I don't see any weight limit issues with the new bridges that have gone in, but some of those ones that perhaps you're refitting should have a posted maximum weight on there. Just a recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. That is our practice.
Any more comments?
Just while we're on the topic, I'd just like to say that Councillor bicycled this trail all the way from Kingston to Clarendon Station in the last month. So I'm a little familiar with all those bridges and has done the trail from end to end or not?
Not yet. Well, congratulations, sir.
Motor.
Richard, I had one comment. Going back 11, 12 years ago, we said once we got to Charlotte Lake, we would simultaneously go to North Frontenac and the islands. We've got nothing on the islands at this point. And no, the suggestion in your material that there was going to be a bicycle trail, that was not the wishes of the island. It was the Wolf Island Canal, which used to be part of the KMP trail system. So any update on that when we're moving forward to planning what?
So, Councillor Deputy Warden, we've reviewed the master planning documents and the various reports that have gone to council, and we have not seen anything in the reports or any approved motions that suggest that we were going to pursue the canal as part of the trail. So, if you'd like to have that discussion at county level, we can we would take a motion of council, I suppose.
Well, it was in the original trail master plan. So she didn't look to. Okay, any more questions? Okay, I think we're moving on to a resolution, Jeanette.
That will be resolved that the County Council report 2021-051 economic development operational update on the Frontenac KMP Trail as background and update to receipt of a draft trail management plan at the July council meeting, and further, excuse me, and further that staff proceed with parking improvements at Godfrey and at the Road 38 trail crossing located near White Lake Road, and further that permission be granted to the Verona District ATV Club to install and maintain washroom facilities at approved locations on the Frontenac County Trail.
Any questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Ward.
Are we using the grant money that we just got, and is this taking any of that money away from the Verona Trailhead?
No.
Richard?
I mean, no. So this is money that is in partnership with the Verona ATV Club, and we are not taking any money away from budgeted projects that were approved by the provincial and federal governments.
Thank you.
Anything else? I was just want to clarify the approved locations for those porta potties. Have you identified those locations yet?
We have not identified specific locations for those. They will be located in a place where they can be easily serviced by the contractor who would keep them clean and emptied. And ideally, they would be located in locations that are generally further, more remote. So locations along because they're provided by the ATV Club, they'd be on the motorized section, so north of Verona, and likely located in somewhere in central Frontenac.
Okay. If there's nothing else, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Carry. And the next we have information reports. Any comments there? We're no longer doing the verbal reports from councillors. Having seen none. Oh, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Martin, for providing such a thorough written report.
You should be saying thank you to Susan Brett.
Yeah, I think you said you cut and paste a lot.
That's right.
Keep an honest counselor over there.
Good point. Okay, well, if there's no more, I think we're ready to return to.
Dennis, I do have
Oh, so sorry.
just on the strategic plan, on the additional funding, looks like we did a great job on that, Kelly. Is there any more opportunities at the federal level versus province? We seem to be focused on provincial versus federal. Sorry.
Oh, somebody else.
Richard continues to monitor those programs and apply as we can. I suspect as we get closer to the next election that there'll be more opportunities. Absolutely, we continue to monitor every opportunity.
Thank you.
Anything else before we read the next resolution and move back to council?
Moved by Councillor Higgs, seconded by Councillor Martin, that council revert from committee of the whole council to council.
All in favor? Carried.
Do we adoption of reports of the committee?
Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Higgins, that the report of the committee of the whole council be adopted and that the necessary actions or bylaws be enacted.
Any comments? All in favor? Carried. Anybody giving notice of motion? Councillor McDonald?
Yes, Mr. Warden, on communication we received text in your package from the town of Fort Erie regarding resolution of the proposed capital gains tax on primary residence. I think as a council, it would behoove us to actually support that motion that's been forwarded to us for our support. And I would ask that perhaps staff could bring forward a motion of support for that for the very next meeting. Thank you, Mr. Ward.
That's not giving notice, that's asking under communications, which is the next section.
Okay, we got it.
Anything under communications?
A motion.
Okay, so Councillor McDonald is asking for one of these here resolutions to be brought forward. other business, the consideration of applications
Oh,
submitted.
sorry, can we not make the motion today? Why do we have to wait for the next meeting?
So technically, you haven't provided notice of motion that we're going to be supporting such a resolution.
So in future, if we see this come across, we should provide you with
Correct.
a motion before the meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
But we could change that if we had a 2/3 vote then.
That is correct.
I'd like to propose we just do it right now rather than bring it.
I agree. We're bringing up our township council on Fridays.
Yeah. So I'll second the motion.
Okay.
I'll move it.
So we have a motion to address this resolution. Now, it's moved by Councillor Higgins, seconded by Councillor McDonald,
The other way around.
whatever.
Sorry, so just a point of order, you do need to pass a resolution first to waive the procedural bylaw.
Yeah, and I move that we
And I'll
rate
second
it,
that.
change the procedure.
I'll vote on it.
I think that is fair.
I will give her enough time to write that before we ask her to read it and vote on. Although be no shorthand, I'm just kidding.
So that's moved by Deputy Warden Doyle, seconded by Councillor Higgins. Be resolved that procedural bylaw 2013-0020 be waived to consider a motion by Councillor McDonald to support the resolution from the town of Fort Erie regarding the proposed capital gains tax on primary residences.
Just a correction.
And it does require a 2/3 vote.
Small correction was Councillor Francis Smith that made seconded the motion.
Any comments? All in favor? Carry. That also includes supporting that resolution, right? So it's all done.
No, now the resolution is put on the floor.
Then why did you include it? Okay.
So Councillor McDonald, you can make your resolution now.
Yes, I would just like
Your microphone, sir.
the county to consider supporting the motion from Fort Erie in regard to capital gains on primary residence, given the impact that will have on most of the, especially senior residents who've been in the home for a long time. So I would ask the council support the fact that we're supporting the Fort Erie motion. Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
I can't write that fast. Can you write it?
Should be okay. All in favor.
Just that you support the motion. Town for their,
We have a mover and a seconder. Everybody understands it. Are we all in favor? Carried. Under other business, consideration of applications submitted for the appointment of Community Development Advisory Committee. And we will need 2 names for Jeanette to complete. Is that correct?
That's correct. Each councillor will be given 2 votes.
Okay, so we don't recommend names, we're just gonna vote.
Sorry, I will just go around the table and you can just give me the 2 names that you wish to vote for.
Okay.
So Deputy Warden Doyle,
Ella Vanderberg and Marlene Stroop.
Councillor Higgins,
Same.
Who we think of like, sir?
Councillor Higgs,
Yes, the same Ellen and Ellen.
sorry, I can't.
Yes, the same Ellen and,
Marlene. Marlene.
yes,
Councillor McDonald,
The same familiar with many of these names, so.
Councillor Martin,
Same names, please.
Councillor Rebel,
Same names?
Councillor Smith,
Ditto. Same thing.
and Warden Vanderwall.
It's almost like this was preconceived. Yes, I agree.
And I didn't talk to anybody about this. It's funny how we all come to the same conclusion.
The resume.
So that comes up under bylaw, or do you want to do it now?
No, so there's a motion here, so that's moved by Deputy Warden Doyle, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that Ella Vanderberg and Marlene Spruitt be appointed to the Community Development Advisory Committee, whose term shall expire November 30th, 2022, and further that bylaw 2013-0020 be amended accordingly.
Any comments? All in favor? Carried. Is there any public that have a question? And if there's not, we will go through bylaws.
Moved by Councillor Rebel, seconded by Councillor Higgs, resolved that leave be given to the mover to introduce bylaws A through C that have been circulated to all members of County Council, and that bylaws A through C be read a first and second time.
First and second, all in favor? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Rebel, seconded by Councillor Higgs, that bylaws B and C be read a third time, signed, sealed, and finally passed.
Any questions? All in favor? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Smith, that the meeting hereby adjourn at 11:35 a.m.
All in favor?
No.
Carried. Mr. McDonald would like to stay.
Only if